All right, let's talk Kyle Juszczyk and why I think the 49ers should be ready to part ways with Kyle. Now, this is not me saying that they are going to do that. This is not a prediction. This is just me making a case as to why they should move on from Kyle Juszczyk. Now, Kyle Juszczyk right now, if they were to cut him, would save them $4.9 million with a dead cap hit of 2.7 million. That 4.9 million that they save by cutting him / trading him, whatever they decide to do, is the biggest on the team outside of two players. So Eric Armstead, for example, $28 million contract this year. If you were to trade him, they only save 2.5 million, half basically of what they would save if they get rid of Kyle Juszczyk. The only two players they would save more money on than Kyle Juszczyk would be CMC at 5.6 million. We know they're not getting rid of him, and that would be crazy. And Deebo Samuel at 6.9 million. But if they do that, they're also taking a near $22 million cap hit. Now, the reason I'm advocating for getting rid of Kyle Juszczyk is twofold. One, they need money. They're a few million over the salary cap. They also need to clear about another 11 million for the incoming draft class. So this money is going to be important. And there's only so many places that they can go after to free up this money. You can only rework so many contracts. And in my opinion, they shouldn't rework contracts on guys like Eric Armstead, whose contract expires next year. Why would I rework a deal on him? Sure, I'm going to save, $12 million, but I'm also going to be forced into keeping him past next year. And I don't want to do that. So there's only a couple guys that they can move around. Obviously, we know Brandon Ayuk, they can free up money there. I think Fred Warner, Charvarius Ward, those are candidates. Maybe Deebo Samuel, you might do a restructure on, but I wouldn't touch George Kittle. I wouldn't touch CMC. Their contracts already expire in 2026. Now you're basically making sure that I have to keep these guys who are aging through the 2026 season and can't get out of it until 2027 if I restructure them. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not doing it with Hargrave, whose contract already doesn't end until 2027. And like I said with Eric Armstead, I don't want to be forced to keep him through next season as well. He's already struggling to make it through seasons healthy. So Kyle Juszczyk and that money, I think, is very, very important to the San Francisco 49ers and what they're trying to do this offseason. I also look at how often he's utilized. And a question that I get is, how do they replace him? There's not many fullbacks in the league. He's an integral part. It's not just about numbers. I understand all of that. Yes, Kyle Juszczyk only averaged one touch a game for the whole season. But what does he bring in the blocking? What if they get rid of him and find it tough to replace him? What does that do to CMC and some of these other running backs on the team? Well, I've got a full breakdown of Kyle Juszczyk and exactly what his snap count looked like this year. So in 10 of his 17 games, he played 45% or less of the total snaps. 45% or less in 10 of the 17 games. For rushing attempts this year, he was on the field for 52% of the rushing attempts, which is not a lot. Half the time, essentially, they're running the ball without him on the field. So not only is he getting one touch per game on average, he's basically on the field half the time, even in rushing attempts, which is where they need him to block. They can move on from Kyle Juszczyk just fine. And I also look at a team like the 49ers and say, well, they've got plenty of locker room presence, so losing him in the locker room wouldn't be a massive hit. I get he's friends with these people. So for me, I just think Kyle Juszczyk is completely expendable. I think the $5 million that you save, which is the third biggest on the team and the most realistic guy to actually cut / trade, makes the most sense. Kyle Juszczyk, appreciate your services, but the 49ers have to free up around $14.5 million to get under the cap, sign their rookies, and also to have any chance in free agency without extending guys like Kittle or Armstead or Hargrave or Christian McCaffrey, who are already getting towards the tail end and are under contract for 2 to 3 more years as it is. Kicking the can down the road and keeping them an extra year doesn't make any sense to me. So, Kyle Juszczyk, appreciate you. Been a great 49er. Sucks that you are unable to get a ring here, but I am willing to cut bait and move on from Kyle Juszczyk for the money-saving reasons and the fact that he was only on the field for 52% of the running plays tells me he's completely expendable. Completely expendable. What are your thoughts? Leave your comments down in the comment section. Let me know if you would move on from Kyle Juszczyk. Knowing the salary cap situation of some of these other players, it just doesn't make sense to move on from them or restructure them, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts below. Peace.